failed because you don't know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So we did a lot of that. The script, we worked the script together. And of course, so Presley is a guy I've always I've admired for a very long time. Don't tell him that. Cut that part out. Yeah. Someone I really admired for a long time. Even when I saw him, I was still studying when I saw him, and he was also still studying. When I saw him when he taught, I was like, shit, I want to work with this guy. Some people thought I was, because somehow some people said we look alike. Mm-hmm. And that really pissed me off. It's like, nah, I don't want to look like this guy. I want to act with this guy. And I manifested that. Mm. And then it happened. Number. And it was such the friendship that we have now, the brotherhood that we have together is it's beautiful. We don't act. Whenever we're in a scene together, there's no acting. But I know when he's lying, though.
Yeah, it's like
cut. He's lying.
He's not being real now.
Yeah, he's not being real, he's lying. But so far, I don't need to do that. It just comes easy. It's just, that's all people, they fucks with Namba a lot. Yeah. Because of that relationship, those two brothers. They're brothers, in a sense, Yeah.
Now, Joe's Gold, when I was watching that movie, I cried. I literally I tried to hold my tears, but what made me cry is the social issues that movie kind of questions and interrogates. It's up to, according to me, the way I understand art, you can try to portray something, but it's up to me to draw meaning out of what you're portraying. I can draw meaning a different way to the next person. For me, those things are things that I live around them.
Yes.
Those are the things that when I look at myself as like, it's because of these things that I am where I am and who I am today. It's because of these things that we end up having young people going to prison at the very young age.
Yeah.
The
committing suicide.
Hey, it's very tough. Yeah. So just before I touch on specific scenes that I love to talk about them, how was the experience working with Namba Joe's Gold and having to shoot in places like Hebrew, where way back then there were big places. Whenever I speak to other people,
there used to be the spots. It's like Yeovil.
Nelson Mandela Bridge used to be the most attraction to tourists and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you guys having to shoot around these places.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you brought how Johannesburg, Josie, how beautiful it used to be. And in Number now really like flipped it and said, look at it now. That's what in Number this one really is for me. It really mirrors society. That's what art is, right? Art mirrors society, and that's where we are. That's why you see those guys with the trolleys. They'll be riding trolleys everywhere. They're everywhere. I remember after I was shooting that, I was seeing those people everywhere I'm going. It just shows you the inequalities that we have in this current country, and it's sad. It's terrible. It's really terrible. Sometimes we didn't need to cast any because they were there. We'd shoot them. They were really there. And to me, I was always on that thinking point, like, yo, this country's in trouble. And that's what the number is. It reflects society. That's why there's one of my favorite shots. I think it's in one of the promos where the drone shot comes in from the slums of Alex. And then you just see this nightclub. And then you're seeing the reflection of the other side is the rich in Santon, that's just that inequality. But it's like this nightclub is almost like something to hold on to, the hope, and then the throwing of the money. When they're throwing of the money, it's just metaphoric of just a wasted people. But those are just metaphors. You're allowed to interpret the way you want to. That's all I say. Number. It never belonged to me. It belongs to the people. You know, if you're not South African, I'm sorry, it's gonna be hard for you to get it. You know, there's certain things about it that are just for us. You know, and then coming to it, working to it, it was tough because I had to really get physically ready for it, like months and months ready for it. But that was my own process, and then spiritually get in touch and understand what do I want to say this time. Because coming from the first one, now this is 10 years now.
Yeah. More matured, more
experienced. And what do I want to say with this one? Because now Chili, the character, he's going on such a downfall from beginning. He's like, he's at that tipping point where, you know, he's done so much, but there's no impact in his life.
Doesn't feel like he's
you know what I mean? It's not mean. Like, so just as we just finished, when we started in Number, I remember speaking to Donovan, pre-prod, you know, talking about the issues I want to bring in. You know, we just lost to Ricky Rick. Somebody I kind of knew and I've worked with on Spy before. He came in Spy one time. So someone I knew I needed to, that's why people are sort of feeling so much for Chile this time, because he's absorbing this generation that a lot of young men are at that tipping point. You know, a lot of people are known. I just before, just July after, you know what I mean? After the whole COVID thing, that's why we were grabbing, you know what I mean? That symbolized that kind of movement.
When you're talking like that, it reminds me of Tupac Swedes. I was like, if I'm at the door, I'm asking, please, can you let me in? I'm hungry. Mm-hmm. And I keep on knocking, it don't open.
Yeah.
Next time I'm singing, I'm hungry, please let me in. Next time I'm screaming, please, I'm hungry, let me in. Next time I was like, I'm kicking out the door.
Exactly.
Because I know there's food, and if I get inside there, I will satisfy my hunger.
Yeah,
and when I saw that film, I was like, no, black people are asking for a very long time. Like, we need opportunities.
Sometimes you need to take it.
Yeah.
Take what belongs to you.
We're taking.
But we're not saying that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
But we're saying that. But that's not what we're saying. That we're not saying that, but we're saying that.
Mm-hmm. And there's an incredible scene that you did. I was like, and you're an incredible actor.
Thank you.
You're an incredible actor. You know, having to react to something that is not on set is not easy. There's CGI thing of the hyena.
Yeah.
And you having to be scared and all this stuff. What helped you to
working with that? Sometimes it's because it's between a sort of like a dolled up, made up green looking dog that somebody has to push around and you have to act along that. Or sometimes it's just a tennis ball. Sometimes we're acting with a tennis ball. But I didn't have as many scenes like that as the others. The guy who really had to work with that was Ubongi, the guy who plays Hyena Man. He really had to work with. He has a beautiful method of how he got in with that character, because I would watch as pre-pod and talking with the director, Donovan Marsh, the creator. What an incredible man, the creator of Number. He created Class Act and then created the Number One. Now he created this one as well. So how their process was, it's how he allowed Ubongi to really trust himself. So he connected with the hyena in such a personal way, because now Umxhosa. So he connected it in a sense, in a spiritual sense, in a cultural sense. That, you know, when you go in Dabini, he connected with it in that way. He had his own process with that hyena. So whenever how he speaks about it and how he fights for it. There's a beautiful scene where the last scene, I don't want to spoil it for everyone though.
Yeah.
But that last scene where we're having that fight, because something happens to the hyena. It was his connection with it, you know. Even when he's like, when there's another scene where he speaks of because every time he speaks of the hyena, he's really speaking of himself constantly.
This is my protection.
Yeah, he's speaking of himself in the mountain. What happened there for him there, you know, and that's why he fights so hard for that tennis. I always call it the tennis ball. That's what I remember doing it with. But no, it was great. I think it's also showing that as South Africans, you know, we're getting there. You know, but South Africans can't be always so hard on. You can't be hard on yourselves. And they said, "Oh no, the hyena. Oh, this part it didn't really look like a hyena. Of course it does. It's not a hyena.
You know, for me,
it's like you. Sorry to cut you. It's like you would allow dragons to believe in dragons flying around, but you're not gonna believe in something like this. Like, come on, grow up."
for me, from the beginning, when your character has been kind of threatened by the hyena in the club or whatever the place is, I never thought it's CGI. The only moment I saw that, no man, this is not a real thing. To me, I was like, it's a real animal.
Yeah, I'm glad you did.
With the chains, like I was like, they tied it up, and this is a real animal. Yeah. Maybe there's so many security measures around it to make sure.
And it's not easy to shoot that. Yeah. People think it's easy because you have to do it in so many different. Because Donovan is a very detailed kind of director. To the best, to what the given stance are then, the given circumstance. So he works according to that. But he's a sort of director that with each take, with each setup, should I say. They said this is the first setup, the camera's here. You know, that's a wide. They say it's there, wide. He'll at least do about 9 takes. And then, but he has to fulfill within that, his board, his board. He has to fulfill storyboard. He has to fulfill at least